the simple fact that the dominance of hypersexualization is precisely what these movements target for, and what these movements at the end of the day want to achieve all of the harmful standards. We at Side Opposition believe that if the LGBTQ plus movement wants to stick to its original principles of self-expression and self-identity, and if they want to fulfill the movements to the extent of which they are truly capable, they really just have to side with us. Two broad extensions in my speech. One, why being able to find your identity is better on our side, of which is central to the LGBTQ plus community. I'll outweigh what Gov says. And secondly, why the nuance of hypersexualization is vital in order to create that change. Before I move on though, firstly, some rebuttals to government's case. One, I think side government has the problem of trying to pick between two very easily pickable options, when it really hasn't been proven why they can't just choose both. I.e., we reject this false dichotomy of PM wherein they say, they'll only see us for how sexualized they are, or as opposed to, hey, why can't we fight for more important things like voting rights? Look, they haven't really proved this exclusivity. It is precisely really only the LGBTQ plus community that are able to both advocate for the sexual expression of everyone, all the while also defending the burden of their humane rights. Lastly, not really lastly, but next, in regards to DBM, a lot of what we got from Gov is hinged on the assumption that people are going to feel coerced to have to act a particular way, right? We think that the LGBTQ plus community is not a monolith. This is a wide spectrum of identities, and hypersexuality is a legitimate form of radical and far left-leaning ideologies, especially when it is the prevailing one. Two, they assert an intuition pump about you not being gay enough if you don't have Grindr. Bro, we literally have the term Versa or Dom or Sub that create an entire subculture and their cults of personality depending on the people's ability in order to express themselves, right? Last time I checked, all these dating apps have settings to say what you want, what sex you like. If you want something serious, it's rather assumptive for government to assume that all queers and all trans individuals are these starving animals who are gonna assault you in a bar. I don't think that's fair or charitable. Thirdly, we get a better call-out culture on our side when there's a dominance of hypersexual discourse, especially when it's not taboo to talk about it, as what my partner mentioned in his speech. It's on-side government that people are more likely to feel closeted and just not talk about it because they're afraid of being judged or scrutinized. On our side, we get a better sense of community when we can call out all those sketchy mentors, priests, and pedophiles who exist. Fourth, we need to understand that on both sides, sex and discussions will exist. However, on our side, people feel safer, people feel more comfortable, and we get to challenge these oppressive structures with that dominance. Lastly, intuition pump. How come when the trans community does something radical like the Olympic last supper thing, that's fine and part of radical discourse, but when they sexually express themselves, that's just not okay. There's a clear double standard in terms of left-leaning progressive radicalization. Moving on to my first extension, why hypersexuality enables people to have a better chance of picking their identity themselves, as opposed on Gov's world where it is imposed on them. Note that the entire point of the LGBTQ plus movement aims to empower individuals with the absolute right to choose how they want to be perceived, how they want to be acknowledged, and how they want to act. What we tell you is having that type of discussion as early as possible is the avenue for us to enact that type of radical change right now. Why is this the case? Two reasons. Firstly is on control. This is where I really want to flip PM's first argument and first case line. We say that the likelihood of being able to face dissent, not being able to talk about your kinks or preferences openly, is precisely what current society imposes on all of us. How? Because when you don't talk about it in a massively open way, when you don't share your experiences publicly, when you don't talk to your friends on the daily on who is a top or not, as PM said, that's precisely the point in which you activate the norm of sex continuing to be something that's weird, continuing to be something that's taboo. Note how none of that happens when you start off as early as a teen, or you are just as open about it as soon as possible. What essentially happens on our side is that as opposed to talking about these taboos on chat rooms or keeping it to themselves, they can bring it up to the trust of their parents or the trust of their friends or the trust of individuals who they can openly have a discussion on this. Note, however, the impetus on their side is that, hey, what about those who don't want to be sexualized? Or what about those who feel a sense of sexuality and are now pressured to fit into this mold? We think the response here is incredibly simple. Being able to say that you are asexual is in and of itself something that is akin or that is a benefit that gains from being able to have that dominance of hypersexuality. And I completely understand that Gov will continue to defend nuance that, oh, this dominance is bad. We think it is precisely because it is something that is so dominant and that is so widely talked about. We can have people who dissent and have that opinion matter. As what I said previously, the LGBTQ plus community is not a monolith, or it's not something that, like, despite the predominance that it does have, it doesn't mean that everyone needs to subscribe to it. Why is this nuance of radicalization incredibly important? I really want you to understand that within status quo, the average person is probably going to lead towards more heterosexual norms. Why? Discussions about the LGBTQ plus, like feminism, are corollary to the point of hypersexualization. Why? Because these movements are the ones who created it. They are the ones who constantly advocate for safe sex, healthy sex, even kinky sex. No matter how hard Gov tries to frame it, sex and the LGBTQ plus are all tied to the hip. We'd rather have it be dominant as opposed to it just not being talked about in the slightest. For all of those reasons, very proud to oppose. Thank you.